I'm J. Lenora Bressler, and welcome to the July 2nd, 2017 edition of the Bible Delight in the Details, as we continue our look at the Psalms. Psalm 84, it says that it is written by the sons of Korah. Now, that's interesting for several reasons. But it's particularly interesting when you read this entire psalm and realize what it is about. It's talking about how glorious it is to be in the presence of the Lord. And to the ancient Israelite, that meant to be physically at the temple in Jerusalem. Now, today, we as Christians know that the temple of the Lord is our own bodies because the Holy Spirit dwells within us. And therefore, we don't have to go somewhere to be on sacred ground. We don't have to go somewhere to draw near to the presence of God. We can do that any place, anytime. And we have the Holy Spirit literally living inside of a believer, which is a luxury that even the most devout Israelite prior to the resurrection of Christ did not have. It's one of the advantages of living on the other side of the cross. But in that day, in the day in which the Psalms were written, people drew to the temple in Jerusalem. In fact, it was commanded that a Jewish man make a pilgrimage at least 3 times every year for 3 different feasts. And so this psalm, along with other psalms, were considered psalms of ascent, psalms that would have been recited literally on your way to Jerusalem and as you approach the temple. Oh, how beautiful is your dwelling place. That is how this psalm begins. And it talks about how glorious it is that even the birds that are nesting in the temple, how envious the worshiper is, even of those birds, because they're able to stay close to God. How the people that are worshipers are envious of the priests who get to work and live within the courts of the Lord. And then there is a very interesting finale where it says that it is better to have one day in the courts of the Lord than 1,000 elsewhere. And I would rather be a gatekeeper in the house of my God than dwell in the tents of the wicked. Now, this may seem a little odd, gatekeeper in the courts of the Lord, until you remember who wrote this, the sons of Korah. Now, Korah, back in Numbers, was one of the elders, apparently, of Israel during Moses' time, and rebelled. And Moses said, look, let God choose between you and me. And God did. The earth opened up and Korah was swallowed whole. He and a large number of his family, but we're told also in Numbers that not all of them were killed. It's interesting, then in 1 Chronicles we learn that the descendants of that same family supported David, and David rewarded them by making them, who were Levites, part of the priest group that would serve at the temple. We are specifically told in 1 Chronicles that they were made, guess what? Gatekeepers. The keepers of the door. Now, we're not exactly sure what that position entailed, but most scholars believe that it wasn't a terribly elevated position, that of all the things that a priest could do at the temple, that was probably not what most people would have striven for or thought was the most important. And yet, it's fascinating because these people knew what it meant to want too much power. They had seen what their ancestors had suffered when they mounted a rebellion against God's order and thought that they should have a more elevated position that they had been given. So isn't it interesting? You know, it's nice to see sometimes descendants of families having taken a lesson from the mistakes of their ancestors. And this generation, David's generation of the sons of Korah, seem to have understood that it's not about pride and position. It's about being close to the proximity of the heart of God. And that is where is protection, provision, satisfaction. Something we should remember today in our generation. I'm J. Lenora Bressler. Visit me on the next edition of The Bible, Delight in the Details. Have a marvelous day.